Hi everyone, Transformers from 5000 here, back with another director's commentary. This time we are talking about Prelude. This has been a long time coming, and despite this being a very short episode, I've got a lot to talk about, so sit back and relax. Now, the interesting thing is, my intro here, you may notice it looks a little bit different. You notice it goes from sort of like a black and white to blue. That's actually intentional. So this whole story is about the birth of everything and giving life and light and everything to everything in existence. And I did that with my intro. I made it sort of just no colour, and then I keyframed it to be normal as the intro progressed. So it actually, came to life. It went from having white optics to blue. So it came alive like this Prelude. How the universe came alive. So it's like my channel. And this is literally the start of everything. There's nothing before this. You might think, okay, is it going to be a prequel story to Prelude? No, this is the start. This is the very first story in everything. And I'm so glad to have the amazing D. Barry Audio narrate this. Genuinely, he did one take, and he sent me it, and I listened to it, and I don't know why, but I just trusted straight away he'd nail it. And as soon as I listened to his voice, the first line, before time began, I was sold. I knew we didn't need any other retakes. I knew whatever he did was perfect. D. Barry is literally one of my closest friends, and it's amazing that I met him through this project, and for him to be the first chronological voice that you will hear. I know I've made stories before this, but this is again the first chronological story to take place. And for Derek D. Barry, for him to start, it's incredible. It's amazing to have him as the first ever voice in my universe. You may remember D. Barry narrating some Halloween stories that I did. That was a little bit of a little practice. So he did those stories in practice for the narration on this story, and he did amazing with them anyway. As always, I'd love to do more of those stories in the future. We'll see where it goes. Now, I have a few things to talk about with this Prelude, and I love the credits here. Originally, I was just going to do stars, space background, but I thought it looked a bit... I wanted more, so I started sticking all these galaxy, images everywhere, and I think it turned out really good. And I've panned it from top to bottom, and a little bit to the bottom right corner of the space image, actually, and you see more parts of the galaxy. Now, there's actually two Preludes in my universe. So there is this one, and then there is another one called Why Am I Here? More on that when it comes out. That won't come out for a while because it's not going to be hard to make, but I've got to do other things before that. When that comes out, you'll see what I mean. As a little hint, it's a little bit of a flashback story. So some of the episodes haven't been made yet, so I need to make them episodes before I can actually make that Prelude. Why Am I Here? Because I haven't got that actual video footage to be able to make it yet. So I have to make other projects first. But that is 50% of my Prelude saga, so it's incredible. This story here, Prelude, which is literally just called Prelude, nothing else, because it preludes everything. And then Why Am I Here? Just so literally those two preludes, and yeah, it's genuinely awesome to have this story finally done. So one thing I really want to mention about this soundtrack is how amazing it is. So I had a few different opportunities with this. There was many ways I could take it, because music can really change the feeling of a story. And this, the start of this soundtrack, it really makes it a bit unnerving, uncomfortable. And that's intentional, because it really makes, for me, this soundtrack makes feel makes space feel huge. If you watch films like Interstellar, you know from the soundtrack and the story how large and vast space is. And you know that the planets that they go to in Interstellar is far, far, far away from Earth. You know that if they need help, there's no way to get to them because they're so far away. And I really tried to incorporate this into Prelude with the soundtrack, that it's so big and vast and space is just so huge. And I really think the soundtrack helped bring that out. A little bit uncomfortable, a little bit unnerving soundtrack because space is so vast and we don't know much about it. And speaking of not knowing much about space, that's another thing I want to touch upon. So D. Barry Audio is sort of narrating an unknown entity right now. So the person who's actually talking, the character that Derek is voicing, they are telling it from, you know, a narration perspective, but there's not a lot of information we have on space. Even in real life, we're still discovering things, and I tried to incorporate like this. I didn't want to talk too much about all different stuff in space because this story is new, space is new, and it's at a very young age where we don't know much about this space. We don't know what came before, so I didn't want to give information overload and say, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened, this person was here, this planet was there, these atoms did this. You know, we don't know that much about space in its younger years, so I thought if I hold that information back, it'll leave it open to a lot of interpretation of what actually happened in those early times of space, and I think that was the best decision. Now, this story was originally meant to be longer, and when I say longer, I mean longer. So the actual Prelude story, the actual text, what D. Barry had to read, it was about a page long, almost a page long. And originally I wanted to have it as about 5 pages long. So really, I wanted this Prelude to be a good 10 minutes longer, probably 10 to 15 minutes. So 5 times longer than what this is, excluding the credits, obviously, in the intro. So the actual episode is probably about 2.5 minutes. So yeah, I wanted it originally to be a lot longer. And what I was going to do was I was going to talk about more about space. And again, because we don't know much about the early days in space, I can't really comment on what happened, obviously. So I just wanted to keep it short and sweet because it's more of a mystery of what happened in those early years. And originally I was going to talk about the start of Primus and Unicron. So it was going to be a tale about how Primus and Unicron fought, how Primus created the Matrix, how Primus created the original 13 Primes. I was going to talk about the downfall of the 13 Primes. I was literally going to go full history lesson. But then I thought, you know, that was an early draft, but I was thinking, this is a prelude about the universe. It's not a prelude about the Cybertronium, you know, race. As much as this is a Transformers story in my universe, it's actually not a Transformers story, and that's intentional, because the thing is, in this universe, right now, when the universe is very young in this prelude, there's no Transformers, because there's no life, things are being formed, so there's literally nothing in this universe. Planets are forming, galaxies are forming, but there's no life. There's nothing. This creator just watches everything, but there's no life. And I was thinking, as much as this is a Transformers story, it's not a Transformers story, because there's countless planets out there with life in the universe, you know, to speak in general terms, and Transformers aren't central to that. There'll be other alien races. So this is a prelude story about everything existing in the start. You know, this is the start of the universe, this is the start of everything, the start of time, the dawn of time. And it's about that. It's about the start of everything. It's not about the start of the Transformers, because generally their life will come later. I was going to touch upon all the Transformers origins, but I was sort of toing and throwing between what to do. I had this Prelude basically finished months ago, and it was just sitting on my computer, and I opened the document up and stared at it all the time, thinking, what can I add to it, what can I add to it? And eventually I couldn't think of anything I wanted to add to it, and it honestly got to the point when I felt forced to add something to it. I felt like if I was going to write something, it'd be forced. And I remember thinking, why don't I just keep it as it is? Keep it short, keep it sweet, don't overdo it. And less is more, and that's so true, less is more. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I think it would have been overkill if I talked about Primus and everything, because firstly there's so many different origins of Primus and the 13 and Unicron. Some of it is some of it is sort of, I don't want to say canon because it's not canon to my universe, because my universe is totally different, but those ideas that are in Hasbro's official media, some of them do sort of generally take place in my universe, like the ideas of like Primus and Unicron, but the actual execution of those ideas would be entirely different in my series. So it's something I'm proud of, this project. I do enjoy it, and like I said, with Dee Barry narrating it, it made it all the better. Now, originally with the shots, I was going to show more as well. I was going to show more planets forming. Originally, I was going to show life, like on the planet's surface, like life growing and aliens running around. But again, I thought, there's no life. This is about the universe. It's not about life. It's about the start of everything. So I cut a lot of ideas out, and I just sort of kept it with relaxing visuals of space. And all these shots I made, now they're stock images from Production Crate, where basically they can have a background of stars, like a star field, and then they'll have a sort of a galaxy image, and then they'll have little space nebulas, and you can combine them, change the colour, make them 3D, 2D layers, make them glow, and everything like that. And that's what I did for each shot. I changed everything and added loads of space nebulas and everything like that. So although these are sort of all stock images from Production Crate, I've made all of them sort of combine into one big image. So I hope they are relaxing. And you'll notice in some shots, space is like red and orange. That's again because it's early stages. So if you look at planets when they're young, like Earth when it was young, it was like on fire. It was like planet, like almost like a sun, almost full of like lava and molten, because it was so hot. It hadn't cooled down, and we see a shot where planets are forming in this, and that's what it is essentially. All space is red and orange. It's hot. It's burning. It's forming planets, and as they form, they are like a big ball of fire essentially. The atoms are colliding, combining, different elements coming together to make a planet. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. I'm not going to say it's hard science, because I don't obviously understand all the science that there is. Even scientists don't always understand science. But I think it's good what I've done with this. I'm proud of this. And the actual shot of planets forming is actually quite interesting, because when the planets are forming in this shot, when it's all orange, when they're forming, the actual video effect is a black hole consuming a planet. And all I did was I downloaded that black hole effect of consuming Earth, and I reversed it. So instead of it going from a planet getting sucked in, it was a little dot sucking out, pushing out and forming a planet instead of tearing it apart. And obviously I messed around with some effects like the heat distortion and hue and brightness, contrast, everything like that. and it actually looks like a planet is forming rather than getting sucked in by a black hole. And I think I did that really well. There's 3 planets forming in that shot, and for each one I sort of made it bigger, smaller, put it further in the distance, brought one closer to the planet, to the camera, had one in between the 2 planets. You'll actually see where the planets are is like an extra layer of like heat, and that's that's intentional. That's almost like an atmosphere, like burning. So I really think I did well for this, and it was one of my original stories that I wanted to make. I've wanted to make this story for a while. It was one of the original stories I had in my original draft for my cinematic universe. So a long time ago I made a draft and I had not that many stories, but this was one of them. And again, I put off making it because I wanted to tell this grand story about the 13 and everything. And yeah, I decided not to do that, but I'm glad I've done it now, because if I made this story 5 years ago, it wouldn't look like it does right now, and I'm really proud of, again, how this came out. So, yeah. Now, one more thing I kind of want to talk about is the Titans. So there is a line by D. Barry where he says that Titans live in this universe, and there's only one thing in existence they should have feared. Now, the Titans refer to like Optimus Prime, Megatron, Primus, Unicron, like those sort of general big baddies, and not even Transformers, like other alien races, because again, this universe is Prelude. This Prelude is about the entirety of everything, so it's not just about Transformers, it's about all of everything starting. So there's other alien races, and obviously those alien races would have war, they would have their own big bads and everything like that. So it's there's going to be other Titans in my universe that obviously I won't probably go into big detail with every single alien race, but there's undoubtedly threats in my universe. And this is what D. Barry sort of refers to, saying there's Titans in the universe. And that's essentially it. There's possibly time travelers, dimension hoppers, enemies the size of planets. There's big threats in the entirety of existence, whether I show that in my series or not. But they are nothing compared to the one that they should have feared. Now, if you're a die-hard Transformers fan, you might be aware of sort of what I'm sort of referring to, but at the same time, I'm not going to confirm or deny. I'm going to keep everyone in suspense about what all this is, and I'm not going to say it is one thing or it's another thing. Just sort of take it for what it is right now as this Prelude, and one day I will touch upon this Prelude and make it make sense. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say in this Prelude. I'm genuinely happy with how it came out. And D. Barry, again, I know I've said thanks a few times, but no, thank you very much. Anyway, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And stay tuned for another stop motion director's commentary coming soon. You can check out my Transformers playlist for stop motions and director's commentary at the end of this video, and also timestamps throughout this video with the cards so you can see other videos that I've made. So yeah, feel free to check them out, and until next time, please do the regular stuff, comment, like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. Follow the Discord link in the description below. Follow me on Instagram at TFM5000 and all the good stuff like that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this Prelude on my director's commentary. Hope you learned something new. Now, till all are one. That's very fitting to say this with the start of every Prelude. Take care, everyone.